I was this moment of rage and frustration. I think that is what somehow resonated with people, maybe because it was unfiltered. There is a deep sense of disappointment in this. I was speaking to a friend of mine. He's a CEO of a space company. He said, to put it politely, it's really stupid. Dismantling the nuclear power plant. It was meant to be a private rant for 5 people I know from Twitter, right? And that when let's say you say something for 5 people and then 3.7 million people see it, that also puts you in a very strange spot,
and now you're here.
Right? Yeah, now I'm here, right? Yeah.
Mein Gast ist promovierter Astrophysiker und kommt ursprünglich aus Kalkutta, Indien. 2016 kam er für seine Doktorarbeit an das Max-Planck-Institut in Göttingen und dort schrieb er über Sterne und magnetische Felder. Außerdem war er bei der Deutschen Bank beschäftigt und ist aktuell bei einem Startup. Also warum sitzen wir hier und warum spreche ich heute mit diesem Gast? Er setzte nämlich Ende Oktober einen Post auf X ab und er ging ziemlich viral und dort schrieb er: Ich habe in nur 9 Jahren beobachtet, wie sich ein erstklassiges Land durch eine Reihe selbstkastrierender politischen Entscheidungen systematisch selbst zerstört. Vorangetrieben von einigen wenigen wohlhabenden urbanen Millennials, die sich moralisch überlegen fühlen wollen. Und er führte weiter: Es ist verrückt, wie der Narzissmus einiger weniger ein ganzes Land zugrunde richten kann. Und daraufhin lud die Welt den outspoken Astrophysiker Mayuk Panja ein und titelte: Warum ein indischer Astrophysiker Deutschland den Niedergang attestiert. And now I'll be switching to English because that's the language we're going to be having the conversation in. You went viral with a tweet that you spoke about Germany. I'm so sorry. I need to my brain hasn't completely switched from German to English, so this is a little difficult, a little awkward. Anyway, you're an astrophysicist. Is that how you say it in English?
Yeah, astrophysicist, yes.
And you're here with me now to discuss this very, very viral tweet that you set off and where the Welt wrote this article about you. They met up with you and they interviewed you. Your post obviously hit a nerve. And so maybe I'd like to ask you first what you meant by Germany's self-neutering policies.
Yeah, I think also it's important to sort of give some context about the tweet. Yeah. So you're on Twitter, you probably know this, that it's like a platform where where the language can be a little coarse, right? It's not a professional sort of medium. You tweet sort of freely, you write what's on your mind. And so I was watching this video of one of the nuclear cooling towers being sort of destroyed, right? So you sort of saw the whole thing coming down. And then I tweeted, it was like a moment of rage or frustration, if you will, right? And I wrote it spontaneously. I wrote a bunch of stuff, tweeted it out, and then sort of forgot about it. And then I remember, I think I did not touch my phone and I was at a restaurant and I thought, okay, let me check my Twitter. And I saw, oh my God, this is blown up. So I had, to give you a bit of context, I had like not many followers. It's not like I was super active on Twitter. So something like 700, 800 followers, which is not a lot if you're there for a few years. And within the end of the day, I had an additional 1,400 followers in like a few hours. It had a few, 1 million views, a lot of people commenting. You could sort of see that the notifications was completely, going crazy. So that was, it's also...
And it was unexpected, right?
It was unexpected because and the point is that I was not, thinking, it was not a tweet where I, really thought it out for an hour and then I chose my words carefully. I was this moment of rage and frustration. I think that is what somehow resonated with people, maybe because it was unfiltered, if you will. And yeah, so the important context is that I think I didn't have a very specific set of policies in mind. Right?
It was just a general statement that you made out of an emotion after you saw the nuclear plant being demolished.
Yeah.
And this was a couple of weeks ago. I saw that video as well. But you're probably aware of the nuclear exit that Angela Merkel started 2011, probably, right? Like this official Atomausstieg, which is an official German policy, right?
Yeah, so it was, as far as I understand, I think there were already protests going on for many, many years, and it was something that happened even before I came to Germany. right? But I guess on some level, what was surprising to me was that, I mean, just because something has been like, you make a policy, then there should be, again, I'm not a politician or a government person, there should be room to discuss it further, or you know,
or you mean adjust maybe?
Adjust, or if conditions change, then maybe rethink it, right? Like, should we completely destroy nuclear, or should we keep some of it, right? And there should be space for public discourse when you say, okay, maybe we are not doing the correct thing, and let's course correct.
Let's course correct. Yeah, Germans don't like to do that in a lot of different areas. But why did this video of the nuclear plant being destroyed, why did that hit a nerve for you? Why is that so important to you?
Yeah, I think so. I'm a scientist by training. I have a background in mechanical engineering in India, and so I generally care about technology and science. And I think it's one of those things, since we are all trying to move towards a sort of carbon neutral, you know, energy landscape. So nuclear is super, super important. And if you look at the world, you know, China, US, even India, France, everybody is going like towards nuclear. Germany is one of the few advanced countries in the world that is not doing that. That was frustrating to me. And energy is super important. So there is this plot that you can find, you know, if you search a little bit, it basically plots the GDP of a country and the energy consumption of a country. It's very, very difficult to have a country that is doing well financially, but is poor in energy, because energy supplies everything, right? You need it not just for heating your homes, but to power industries, manufacturing, all of that energy is needed. And when energy costs go up, everything goes up, right? So manufacturing costs go up, and then downstream of that, everything goes up, right? And so it's very, very hard to build a country that is really, really doing well financially and economically and industrially with low energy input. And nuclear is one of the fastest, I would even say safest ways to get there. And to me, like, that was frustrating because, well, Germany, one of the things Germany is famous for is manufacturing, right? So you need energy to power the manufacturing sort of scene. If you notice a few things about, so I was in Deutsche Bank, and one of the things that we did regularly was look at GDPs of countries and how they're changing. And one of those things that you will notice is in Germany after 2016, the GDP has sort of flatlined. So there hasn't been a lot of growth. At some point, Germany was the largest exporter of automobiles in the world. Now it's China, right? So there are things that Germany was leading, right? And if you look at, again, the GDP of Germany, it was growing. At some point, it just became flat. And in knowing all of these and then moving away from a very safe, clean source of energy, to me was very, very frustrating. And if you speak to sort of engineers and scientists, most people will sort of attest to the fact that nuclear energy is very, very, it's one of the safest ways to sort of,
So is that what you and your science friends discuss? Like, do they all obviously not share your point of view on everything, but on the energy perspective?
Well, I think if you talk to most industrialists and engineers, I think it's sort of there is a deep sense of disappointment in this. I was speaking to a friend of mine. He's a CEO of a space company. He said, to put it politely, it's really stupid. Dismantling the nuclear power plants.
Is he German or a foreigner?
No, he's an American.
He's an American.
He's running a company in Berlin.
Do you feel like there's maybe I mean, I don't know, like the setup of your science friends, because I imagine it's very international.
It is.
So and then I have this preconceived notion that Germans would be more okay with the policies and how they're done in Germany, and that foreigners look at it and they're like, why is this happening here? You know what I mean? That's like my idea.
As in
that foreigners look at it differently than Germans do.
Well, certain aspects of it definitely, right? I think the specifically energy thing, yes, 100%. But like I said, it's an anomaly in the world, right? If you look at most developed countries like the US, well, China has not developed it, but it's on the way, sort of. Also France, right? I think Finland or Norway, one of the Scandinavian countries. If you look at the developing countries, nobody is sort of moving away from nuclear so aggressively as Germany is. So when you have people from these countries, there is a little bit of surprise, right? Why is this the case?
You were talking about manufacturing jobs, and in the Welt article also talked about the automobile industry that you also mentioned, and that there were about 50,000, how do you say, Arbeitsplätze?
Employees.
Employees that we lost the jobs, basically. So manufacturing is decreasing. Manufacturing employment is decreasing, and it's moving somewhere else. Is that also something that I mean, I understand you're in a startup, but you're connected to different people. Is that something that you guys discuss, or what's your point of view on that?
Yeah, I think, and this sort of connects back to the tweet that I wrote. I think it's, when I say self-neutering policies, again, I didn't have a very specific set of policies in mind, but I think it's a general culture. When I talk to a lot of people, not a lot of people, I think, like I said, a few people, and I tend to find this tendency among certain groups of people that they tend to put the environment above everything else. I think that's sort of what I was trying to refer to here.
Is that that you were referring to the few wealthy urban millennials who wanted to feel morally superior and wanted a pat on the back for being a good person?
Yeah, I mean.
So you're talking about those ecologically mindful?
Well, there is ecologically mindful, I think, is necessary, right? You have to sort of make sure that you completely don't destroy the planet. I think everybody can agree on that. But I think I would say there has to be a balance, and it cannot be that you will destroy people to protect the environment, right? So that's going to another extreme, right? And so I'm also talking about people from the degrowth, for example, movement. I think that has gained some popularity. Like there are people who really, really believe that we should deindustrialize and sort of, I don't know, go back to the Middle Ages or something.
Is that how you're interpreting what
I don't know. Yeah, I mean.
Well, I think there are very popular people in the media also that that are supportive of the degrowth movement, right? And as far as I understand, they say that we can't grow forever. That's, I think, one of their points of view, and that we don't have enough resources to support this type of growth. I think those are 2 points. I don't know what you would say from a scientific point of view, what you would say to that.
I mean, I think it depends on how you sort of see resources, right? I think if you ask me, we haven't yet harnessed a fraction of the resources that are available to us, and I'm of course including nuclear, right? So not just nuclear fission. There are actually cool startups in Germany who are building nuclear fusion in Bavaria, right? So nuclear fission is when you sort of split an atom and you take the energy that is released. Nuclear fission is you push in 2 atoms, and then you take the energy. That is much more difficult because it requires a lot more temperature and pressure. That sort of technology is not yet fully ready, but people are working towards it.
In Germany, which is interesting, right?
Yeah, there's in Munich. It's called, I think, Proxima Fusion. It's a system.
Why do you think that something like that is still being developed in Germany when we don't even use nuclear energy?
Well, so that's a completely different technology. So it's nuclear fusion, and the one that's sort of going phased out is nuclear fission. So it's a completely new technology. We don't yet know how exactly it will become mass produced. But going back to your previous question, right? So if you include sort of the nuclear power that is available, the solar energy that is available, I don't think we have completely used all of the natural resources that are available to us. And one of the things that you sort of if you look at the history of humanity, we have grown more and more energy efficient. So which that means is we can do much more for less and less energy input. So if we can become more and more productive, we can sort of also keep growing. And this is sort of the sort of, I would say, an optimistic worldview that I have, is that we can sort of start to think beyond our planet, right? So if you look at sort of 1800s, right, if you told people that we would be flying, they would think you're completely crazy, right? If you take a person from early 1900s and you told them that there will be soon airplanes and you can travel across the world in a matter of few hours, they would think you're crazy, right? But and in the same way, so maybe to a lot of people, it is a crazy idea right now that we'll become a spacefaring civilization. But I think if you're talking about infinite growth, we're also talking about very, very long time scales. And in 150, 100, 200, 300 years, we don't know. I think it's also very hard to say what's exactly going to happen. It's also very important to understand we don't know fully. And so many things can happen. And there's one way to like imagine that everything is going to come to an end and prepare accordingly, or be optimistic and believe that, you know, we'll sort things out.
Mm-hmm. So you're a part of maybe the other idea, or perhaps ideology. If degrowth is an ideology, then maybe you're part of the, I don't know, interplanetary growth movement. Is that what we want to call it? I don't know. The Elon, I mean, it sounds a little Elon Musky to me. And I saw your X feed, and I understand that you look up to him, I would say. Is that fair to say?
I wouldn't say look up to him. I think people like him are necessary. They're obviously, so I'm a big fan of like the technology and science, right? And so I think you need companies like that, you know, people who are thinking in terms of completely changing the way we look at technology. So in that sense, yes. But I think also if you talk about near-term things, I mean, space and all of that is way far into the future. But even if you are on Earth right now, right, we still have a lot of energy that we haven't really utilized, right? Again, I'm factoring in a lot of nuclear power here. There's lots of solar power that we haven't really, there are vast plains where we can, you know, lay out solar panels and that can supply a lot of energy. So I don't think we are at that point yet. Even if we think in a system which is just limited to Earth, we are not at a point where we are very close to finishing all our resources. So there's a lot of room left for development.
Do you think it makes sense to use solar and wind in Germany?
Specifically in Germany, like I said, if you ask me, I think I would be a strong proponent of nuclear still, because, well, if you look at the sun outside, it's not the sunniest country in the world. Right.
Shocker.
In Germany,
and we don't have a lot of free area or space.
Yeah. Also, yeah, you need
very dense populated country.
Yeah. Also, yeah. So, in the long term, I think it would become very, very difficult, probably, to just push the country forward with just specifically solar and wind. I think you would need a mix of solar, wind, and other forms of energy, definitely. Yeah.
So maybe on the flip side, you're part of a startup. You're here for 9 years. You have probably a network of scientists that you are connected to. You worked at the Deutsche Bank. Maybe you could tell me things that work in Germany, or maybe things that used to work in Germany, because there must be a reason why you are staying here.
Yeah, I think you know, I'll go back to sort of what my sort of friend who is running a space startup said. I think in Germany, for example, if you look at the space sector, for example, it has all the right components in place. So, for example, for a country to be really, really successful, you need a few things. You need the technology. You need the human capital, so people who can work with the technology, who can do the research, who can develop future technology. You need the infrastructure, right? So you need roads and factories and everything in place. And Germany has all of that. So in his opinion, for example, it's really, really poised if it wants to become sort of the next superpower in space, right? You just have to sort of make sure that everything goes correctly, right? There's a lot of good things about Germany. So I came here very specifically because I wanted to work at the Max Planck Institute for Sonnensystemforschung. I was looking to do research on a very particular topic. And there were only a very few places in the world that do that. And which is why I came to Göttingen. I'll tell you one of the coolest things about it. So for example, during my research, I had to use supercomputers. And normally that is very, very hard because there are not too many supercomputers in the world. And in the US, in a lot of other countries, for example, in comparison, if as a student, if you want to use a high performance computing cluster, you would have to write a grant, you would have to wait for approval. In Germany, the Max Planck Society has its own high computing cluster. So you just go in, you log in, and you start working. So there are many, many things that I think where it has very strong advantages. Like there's a lot of high quality research that comes out. It's still a lot of strong engineering knowledge, right? The infrastructure is still very good compared to a lot of other places in the world. I think it's the part of the tweet was that it just, so Germany, again, I was looking at the number of unicorns that come out of by countries across the world. I think Germany is at number 5.
Can you define unicorn?
A unicorn is a startup that's valued at $1 billion.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Oh, and Germany is at number 5.
Germany is at number 5. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Unexpected.
Right. Yes.
And so these startups, do you know, are they mainly out of the space industry?
It's mixed. It's a lot of high tech, but a lot of them are also Berlin-based startups that for example.
But valued at $1 billion?
Yeah, Zalando, for example.
After watching We Crashed, I'm not sure if I've always believed the number that they...
Well, yeah, these are valuations, but they're like a metric of how the world views these companies, right?
All right, fair enough.
So Zalando, Delivery Hero, a lot of Berlin-based startups actually. HelloFresh. Yeah.
Okay, but that's not high tech.
No, that's not high tech, but it is also that's consumption. But also you need everything, right? I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing.
Well, no, I frown upon it a bit. Okay. So I think high tech, I give it more value than consumption because consumption can just be consumed. It's like gone, and like high tech, I feel like it creates value.
I think both are needed because you still need to power the economy, right? So when you have, let's say, even something like Delivery Hero or Zalando, they still bring economic value. You need the economy to function, right? And even for example, I'll give you an example. Like India is a poor country, right? And so we don't have a lot of high-tech startups. But now that we have a lot of consumption startups that are successful, some of this money can go into the high-tech, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, so when you're at that development stage, it makes sense. I just feel like in Germany, you need high-tech.
Oh, you definitely do, 100%. Yeah. I think it's going back to the original statement. It's just that it has all the right components. It has all the right people. It's just you need like a few things to work. I can go back to the tweet, like the self sort of neutering policy sort of thing. So, for example, there was this law. Again, a lot of these are also EU laws, not German-specific laws and policies. So there's a lot of overlap in that.
Yeah, there's a lot of criticism of that on this channel because it is very, So go ahead.
So one specific thing that I sort of learned over the years is there's something called the Supply Chain Act. So what that sort of...
Lieferkettengesetz, yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult for me to... So it's sort of, so let's say you're a German company in manufacturing, building something. You have a supply chain, right? You source materials from all over the world. You have to ensure that every step, I think it pretty goes down to a very low level layer, that no human rights violations are being made. All the environmental risks are being sort of calculated. All the risks are being mitigated. Now it's good in theory, but it's very, very hard to execute. And you cannot have control over so many countries. And in the end, people will always find a way to bypass these sort of, laws, at least in other countries. It's very, very difficult. Let's say you're running a 1,000 person company in Germany to have full control over your supply chain. So I think these are little things where you have to find the right balance, right? How do we enable the small German manufacturing company, right? How do we sort of help them grow? Right, and instead of putting more and more regulations, I think that's the sort of angle that I was coming from.
So you would say that these self-neutering policies, if you want to be a little bit more broad, would be regulation, bureaucracy, maybe also a tendency to have a pessimistic view on life. This is not a policy, obviously. This is more of like a zeitgeist in Germany, because it was also mentioned in this article that when you told people that you work at Deutsche Bank, they said that you're working for the evil side now.
Yeah, that was definitely some reaction I got from some people. I think there is a general view, again, among some segments of German society. I wouldn't say it's all encompassing, because again, there's the same society that's working on fusion reactors, right? So it's definitely not everyone, but that capitalism in general is bad, and anything to do with, markets and finance is bad, and these are evil people. I think at some point, Deutsche Bank did make some, not very wise decisions. I think way back, they were associated with the Taliban or something, but that happened like 15 years back. So I think
I think there were different things too in the more recent, not recent, but definitely we all know that big financial institutions have done their share of, I'll be fair, bad decisions, right?
Yeah, that's a very valid point.
But you meant that you were surprised about how Germans reacted that you work in an institution like that. Is it different to maybe if you speak to your Indian family and you tell them, they're probably like, oh wow, this is amazing. Deutsche Bank is like a great name. Is that what you're expecting?
I think so. I think there is a difference. Yes, I think there is a cultural difference. But again, I wouldn't generalize and say all Germans.
Obviously,
right, and that is a very important distinction to make. I think my frustration is probably aimed towards a very specific set of people who have a lens of seeing the world where you see everything through a lens of, is this moral or is this not? And that sort of determines everything. So for example, I don't know, like for example, regarding the environment, right? Regarding capitalism, right? You see things just through one narrow lens and you forget everything about the economy, industry, people, all of that. I think my frustration is probably directed towards that. But to answer your question, yeah, definitely. I think if I speak to my family and I say I'm working for Deutsche Bank, oh, this is good for you. You're working for a large company that's spread across the globe, right? Whereas, yeah.
When you speak to your, I mean, you've lived in Germany for 9 years, almost a decade, right? So when you speak to your family, have they visited?
Yeah, they did visit. So
when they come here, do they still see Germany as what they expected? And I want to give a little context because I have, like my mother's side of the family is from Brazil, right? They've never visited, but they have a certain idea of how Germany is. And when you tell them, for example, that 60 or almost 70% of people here don't own their own home, they're like, what? Like, why? Or if I spoke to, this is about 6 years ago, if I spoke to Russians and I told them that we have homeless people on the street, they were like, what? Why? Like, that can't be. You're so rich. So are there certain, like, ideas that maybe your family has about Germany that when they come here, they're like, oh, this is totally unexpected. I didn't expect that Germany looked like this?
Well, when my family visited, it was in, 2018. So that was some time ago. Yeah. But they only also visited Göttingen and Hamburg. And so, well, Göttingen is a very, very pretty and beautiful town, right? So there's really nothing that you can complain about. Okay. Also, I'm biased because I'm
sure Germans can find something to complain about, but okay.
Yeah. But for them personally, no, because they still, like I said, if it's still, to be frank, it's still a developed country, much more compared to India. Maybe the difference in Brazil and Germany is not that much, but still the difference between India and Germany is huge.
There's a big difference.
There is a big difference. But my father, he was impressed. Like also, like, when you go to Berlin and you see the Hauptbahnhof, it's pretty impressive for a person who is not.
Interesting.
Because you have like 4. That's a lot. It's also a lot of engineering. You have 4 levels, and there are trains going through all the different levels. For a person coming from India, that is like super impressive.
That's so interesting, right? It really is like a...
And you don't think of it, right? No. When you go to the Hauptbahnhof, you don't think,
we're so used to it. Yeah, and we're so used to this infrastructure, this development. But I will say this, because I do speak to a lot of people who are worried about the direction that Germany is taking, right? And the thing is, what I think it's unfair, actually, to compare Germany to Brazil or to India. I think it's more fair to compare Germany now to Germany maybe 20 years ago.
Or to the other developing countries like Germany, so I think the US and France.
Exactly. If you were to do that, no, I don't know much about France, to be honest, about the economic data. And I don't think it's that good in France, to be quite honest. But I think that's where the complaints are coming from. Not because Germany isn't more developed than maybe India, right?
Yeah.
Everybody kind of knows that. But then again, if you look into other parts of the world, like if you go further towards the east in Asia, you have extremely developed cities over there. And that make this look like the Middle Ages. You know what I mean? So I think it always depends what you compare it to.
Yeah.
But maybe a question that I have for you is, why do you care? Like, you could just go somewhere else, right? And not that I want you to go somewhere else. That's not what I mean. But I'm just saying, why do you care about Germany? Why do you stay?
Well, I think, I don't know how long I'll stay further. Not because of the economics, but because maybe, also it would be nice to just contribute back to India, right? Because I think I got a very cheap education that has held me in good stead over the years. But why do I care? Well, I think like if you live in a place for 10 years, you develop some sort of emotional connection with the place, right? And I think if Germany does well, it's also better opportunities for everyone in the world. I think every country in the world should do well, and that is good for everyone. I think if the German economy is not doing well and the European economy is not doing well, and if the European economy is not doing well, the world is also not doing well. So I think it's generally good for the world. But also, like, you live in a place, personally speaking, you live in a place for 10 years, you develop friendships, you grow to care about the country a little bit, right? So I think that sort of comes naturally, right? Like, if you live somewhere for 10, 15 years, you would naturally develop some bond with the place, right? I think
it also depends on how I live in that place. And you mentioned you got a cheap education here, and I think that kind of...
Well, India, I said, but also
in India and here, right?
Well, here I didn't really get an education, in the sense that when I was doing my PhD, you get a contract and you're a scientific employee. So you're actually an employee and you do duties.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, you got a cheap education in India.
Yeah.
How does that work? Can you fill me in on how that works over there? Like, is it like a solidarity system, just like here, where everybody pays taxes and stuff?
Well, no, I went to a government college, and so I paid like 2,000 euros for my bachelor's.
Oh, all in all?
Yeah, overall, I would say like maybe if you put in like my food and traveling, then 3,000. But overall, my undergraduate and for my master's, I got a scholarship. So it was super cheap.
Ah, you got a scholarship. Okay. Yeah. Can you tell? Okay, I'm super interested now. How much? Like, what's the income tax in India, where you're from? I understand that there's a lot of different regions. Do you know?
Yeah, the income tax is also pretty high in India, but
really?
Yeah. But people complain about it. It's because,
of course,
in Germany at least you get good public transport, right? In India, that's a whole other topic. In India, you pay high income tax, but you don't get good.
But how much you pay? Do you know?
Yeah, it's pretty high actually. I think you pay 1/3 at least, and then on top of that, but you also have to save. You have to save up for your health problems, for example, because healthcare is super expensive. You just can't walk into a hospital and get free healthcare, so that comes out of your pocket.
Well, it's not free here. Let's be honest.
It's not free. Yeah,
you know, I get so riled up. Like when my American friends tell me it's free healthcare, I'm like, it's not free. Here's how much I pay for it. You know.
That's true. I think I've paid at least 60,000 euros at the bare minimum.
At least, yeah.
And I haven't really. Yeah, gotten sick at all.
Well, good. Thank you for your contribution. I will say that, and it's because the most of it is when you get older. That's where all the money goes. When you're older, that's where they put all the money in the people when they get sick. So that's usually how it goes. In this article, they mentioned in the end that you're currently working. I wonder if this is still true. That you're working on a product to predict human behavior. And that's, when I read that, I was like, wow, that sounds a little Black Mirror to me. So would you care to elaborate on that, what that is?
Yeah, I think it's, pretty standard in the sense that people already are doing it. But what I'm working on is less intrusive in the sense that if you look at social media, people, these companies are scraping your data. They're looking at what you like, what you dislike, and trying to build a model of what you can probably buy, right? What we are doing is very different. It's just trying, when I say human behavior, it's not what you will go out and do tomorrow. But let's say you see an ad, and then the ad can be phrased in two different ways, right? You can write the same message can be sort of delivered in many different ways, and you try and predict which is going to appeal to you more.
Okay, so it's like A/B tests.
It's like A/B tests. A lot of A/B testing automated with AI, for example.
Okay, that doesn't sound too scary.
Yeah, it's not that we are trying to predict what are you going to do next morning.
Okay, that's what it sounded like to me.
Yeah, but it's
predict
more
my behavior throughout the day. Like, when does she go to yoga? When does she do this? When does she go out? Does she? You know what I mean?
No. Okay. It's definitely not that. So a lot of the world is basically dependent on predicting human sentiment. So I was working in finance. So a lot of the way the stock market goes up and down is based actually on human sentiment. It's not an actual indicator of how things are. So let's say you brought up Elon Musk. Let's say he tweets something very bad, and then the Tesla stock drops. Not because the Tesla manufacturing has gone down, but people feel that something bad might happen. So they start selling and the stock goes down. So a lot of the world is based on sentiment. So ads, for example. So if you can predict a little bit of that, then it can be useful to some companies, for example, right? So I think it's just trying to predict general human sentiment towards a certain political message, or it could be also ads, things like that. So I think it's just trying to find out what will resonate with people more. So it's, you could say, market research with a little bit of artificial intelligence, but it's not at all trying to predict what you're doing in your personal life.
Not yet, at least. Do you think, I mean, like from your point of view, since you're very like technology open-minded, right? Where do you think this AI stuff is going to take us? Okay, I have some concrete questions. So how many jobs do you think are really going to, how do you say, get removed? Automated? Yeah. How many jobs what's realistic to you, and in what time frame?
Yeah, if you ask me, if I look at history, so every time you have had a new leap of technology, let's say the internet, for example, or another very interesting example to me, I'll use this analogy, is that before 1920, almost all of the world moved using horses. And then Henry Ford came in, he built the automobile industry sort of. And then in 10 years, we moved from horses to automobiles. Now the horse industry like completely got decimated away, right? But you had the automobile industry. So it's, and again, with the internet, a lot of things sort of went away, but it created new sort of, sort of professions. For example, what we are doing right now here, right? This will be broadcast over the internet, right? So I think it's the same way with AI. I think it's also going to empower more people to do more, right? I think a lot of jobs will go away, but I think it will also create more jobs. I am optimistic because in general, I also believe in my worldview. If you talk to me more, you'll find out I tend to err on the side of optimism more than caution. And it's because if you look at the history of the world, every time a new technology has come in, it has only benefited humanity. I do not remember a major technology coming in which has actually increased our productivity, but has actually been really, really, really harmful. I mean, internet, electricity.
But some would say nuclear power has both sides. So it's given us cheap energy, but it also gave us the weapon, which decimated a lot of humans.
That is true, but
was used as a threat in like geopolitical standoffs. So I would say it usually has both sides. So AI is probably going to be the same. It has a lot of benefits. I use it. I appreciate it very much. And I see, there's going to be some collateral damage that comes with that. So do you not see both sides of that?
I mean...
Or do you choose to stick to the side of optimism and to just ignore the rest?
But I think it's not like, do you blame the technology for it or do you blame humans for it?
No, it's how you use it. But, but it's just like us humans, right? I mean, it's going to be a little philosophical, but like humans are capable of wonderful things and are also capable of horrendous things. And so every technology is going to have different ways of how it's used and exploited.
I think we understand, let's say we acknowledge that, then the solution is to not develop technology any longer,
Absolutely not.
Right?
No, because I don't think you can. I don't think you can stop. I think that development is part of us.
That development is part of us, yes. I'll bring this, since you brought up nuclear sort of bombs. I think... if you ask me, so for example, if I draw the example of India and Pakistan, so they've always sort of been bickering against each other. And I think the reason there hasn't been a full-scale war is because sort of nuclear power. So both countries are nuclear armed.
Yes.
And we know that if there's a full-scale war, it's total, complete destruction, right? And no one wants that. And I think maybe that's why we don't have a full-scale war. And I don't know if that's the reason we did not have a third world war, because people have realized
it's the ultimate deterrent. I think you listen to John Mearsheimer. Do you?
Not much. But,
okay, because that's what he argues as well, that you could even argue that nuclear weapons have kept us safer if we didn't have them. But obviously that's like a theoretical, well, it's actually not theoretical, it's a practical example, but we don't know how it would be without them, right? We don't have like a control group.
Well, we do, but you could say before nuclear power, in like nuclear sort of bombs, like there were 2 world wars, like in a span of like 20. The First World War ended, and how long was it before the Second World War started? I don't know. You know.
I don't think. History. Yeah, a little bit more, but not that. Let's not get into details, okay? But then it's very monocausal what you're saying now. As if it were just because of nuclear.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. 100% not. I'm saying if we are to make the argument that nuclear sort of bombs are generally, well, Hiroshima and Nagasaki happened, it's horrible, right? Of course, everyone can agree on it. But overall, is it good for peace? Is it bad for peace. I think it's a complicated discussion, and you cannot definitely easily come to the conclusion that it's definitely bad for world peace.
Well, if you're one of the morally superior peoples who want to be a good person, it's probably a really easy decision because it's like a moral argument.
You could simply it's bad. It's a bomb.
Yeah.
It's bad. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So in that way, you could also say no one should invest in defense because it's.
I tend to agree with that. I know.
Oh, really?
I'm a little Gutmensch sometimes too, a little good person. I don't. Well, actually, you know what? No, let me correct that statement. I don't invest in defense because I don't.
But a country needs to have its own defense systems, right?
Yes, and I don't. But that's not what it's being used for. That's not how the system works. When you invest in Rheinmetall, it's not going into this country. It's going into contracts that's causing a lot of, oh God, this is really difficult for me to say in English because I have not thought this through in English. So I'll probably just stop here before.
But you have definitely a point, right? It's not always like, there are good and bad sides to almost everything.
Yeah, and I like looking at it that way. And I guess you do too.
I think that's also the sort of what reflects maybe a little bit in the tweet that I wrote. Again, it was, like I said, very hastily written and, it's
well written, to be honest.
I don't know. I mean, it was, the funny part of this is that it was not meant to be seen by so many people. I mean, that's the irony of it all. It was meant to be seen by 100 people maybe. And
how many people saw it in the end?
3.7 million.
Oh my God.
Right? And that's the whole irony of it, that it was meant to be a private rant for 5 people I know from Twitter, right? And that when let's say you say something for 5 people and then 3.7 million people see it, that also puts you in a very strange spot,
and now you're here.
Right? Yeah, now I'm here, right? Yeah.
And now you're part of this like semi-political discussion about self-neutering policies in Germany. And you're like, how did I get here? Well, I just want to say your name correctly one more time. Mayuk?
Yeah, Mayuk.
I'm sorry that I
no, that's a great way to pronounce it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much for coming and agreeing to this interview. It's so interesting. It's also interesting because you're in part of such a different field. I feel like you have different conversations with different people, so I find that very interesting. And maybe one of your friends, maybe a German friend of yours, would also like to come here and tell me something about, I don't know, space or whatever is going on in whatever startup. I would be totally open to that. Thank you so much for elaborating on this tweet. Thank you so much for writing this tweet. I think it's really important. I think it's good. There was a reason why people reacted to it.
Probably.
It hit a nerve.
Yeah.
It hit a nerve, and that's why 3.7 million people saw it, which is crazy. So thank you so much for coming here, and best of luck for future endeavors.
Yeah. Thank you as well, Yasmin, for having me here.
Thank you.